Welcome back. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition. So, Home Affairs Minister Schreiber has welcomed a constitutional court ruling regarding dual citizenship. The top court upheld a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment which found parts of the Citizenship Act unconstitutional. It relates to South Africans losing their citizenship when they become citizens of another country without express permission from the minister. The DA approached the court seeking confirmation. Now, Schreiber says an online portal should be ready by the end of the month to assist those affected by the law. Well, of course, to get more on this, we are joined in studio by a DA national spokesperson, Willie Okamp, and also to give us the immigration professional perspective, we're joined by immigration expert Craig Smith, who joins us via video link. Gentlemen, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Willie, I'll let you go first. Reaction to the ruling coming out of the ConCourt. I'm sure, of course, you welcome it as a party.
Yeah, the Democratic Alliance definitely welcomes this. This has been the culmination of a legal battle that lasted for 10 years, where the Democratic Alliance fought for the rights of citizens not to lose their citizenship. As you rightly said, when people became citizens of another country as well, they then automatically lost their citizenship. And if you look at Section 20 of the Constitution of South Africa, it protects people from not losing their citizenship. And we brought that application already 10 years ago. And today we have been victorious in the Constitutional Court. This is a victory for every South African because it confirms our right to be citizens of this wonderful country.
Yeah.
And if you look at the fight that we had to fight in this, it's unfortunate. We have been opposed by every single previous Minister of Home Affairs, the latest being the previous Minister of Home Affairs, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, who tooth and nail fought this, whereas they should have fought for the protection of a person's right to be a citizen. Can you just imagine having maybe immigrated to another country, your children are here or your parents are still here, and one day you woke up to just realize that you are no longer a citizen of this country. When you come here, you've got to do it on a visitor's visa or get permission to do that. So it's just so wrong what happened, and we are very glad from the Democratic Alliance's side that we were victorious in this case.
Yeah, it's interesting because it brings about the debate, and one wonders if it's almost, a discussion around patriotism and a test to one's, just how patriotic they are. But Craig, perhaps you can help us out here, right? Just the numbers of South Africans that would have been impacted, and I know that the DA certainly has touched on it, is saying, I think you said it was just about 2 million South Africans living abroad who were affected by the law. You can help us with those numbers as well, Craig. But what the process would have looked like and why this was an important step for the process in and of itself to face a legal challenges that go all the way up to the ConCourt. So help us with the process, the numbers, and then, if you will, the motivation. Because, again, I mentioned the issue of patriotism. The argument can be made, well, if you've emigrated, you've essentially left.
Yeah. Right. Well, first off, I agree with Willie there. At the end of the day, you are dealing with Section 20 of the Constitution. It's been a long time coming. And when you reconcile Section 20 of the Constitution, which deals with your right not to be deprived of your citizenship, and you weigh this up with this specific Section 6.1, and now Section 6.1, which is the provision that says, well, if you're a South African and you go abroad and you take up another nationality, you automatically lose your South African citizenship. And what does that mean? Not only does it mean the parents who now suddenly take on becoming a UK national or American national, whatever, when they have children, if they do, those children are no longer born to South African citizens, and they will now be affected. They will literally come to South Africa as foreign nationals and enter on a visa-exempt status. And those parents will be relegated to permanent residence. That's the procedure. But now you have to go to Home Affairs and say, oh, I took a British nationality. Can you please determine my citizenship? You make an application. Or for Home Affairs to then send you a letter and say, sorry, you've lost your citizenship. you are only a permanent resident. So this has been a long-term time coming. I mean, since 1949, you had this provision about losing South African citizenship. So there are generations that have lost out on this provision because this is an automatic loss. This is a loss that you may not even be aware of, that sits silently in this Citizenship Act, and you don't even realize that when you're giving birth to your children, you may be abroad, but those children are simply born as foreign nationals. So you can imagine the amount of people that have been affected by this, or may not even have realized that now they can actually get South African citizenship without any encumbrance. But obviously those many people have been affected. There are forums overseas who've been dealing with this. There's been a long-term drive. Willie is quite correct. And finally, the Constitutional Court has pronounced and confirmed the Supreme Court of Appeal decision that you can't just automatically make South Africans lose their citizenship. They lose as a citizen Section 19 of the Constitution, which is your political right to vote. So, you know, you lose your badge of identity, your right to align yourself with South Africa and vote and feel part of South Africa, even if you're abroad.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you so much for that. And we're going to take calls on this one already. Duma calling in, wanting to share their thoughts on that ConCourt ruling. Duma in Durban, good evening. Thanks for calling.
Yes, Nadine, how are you?
Well, sir, talk to us.
Good evening to your viewers. My problem is that you are being reversed now. Because now what you are seeing here is what you call a reversal of our constitutional rights as black South Africans.
How so?
White people are therefore trying to tell us that if and only if you are not from South Africa, all of us are here as a citizenship of this country. But my problem is, as the DA is telling us that we must have a dual citizenship. Dual citizenship is what you mean. By dual citizenship, you mean that you must go to London and then you are from KwaZulu-Natal. Us, as black people, we are not privy to anything like that.
Okay. Duma, thank you so much for calling in. And that's where the issue of, I think, being patriotic comes in, right? Because Duma says, I mean, there's the belief that this is very much a battle for the privileged. What do you say to that, Billy?
Well, firstly, our law in South Africa makes provision for dual citizenship. And the Constitution, as I said, Section 20 is very clear. This is also part, Section 20 of Chapter 2 of the Bill of Rights. So it is an inherent right for everybody. I was at the Constitutional Court this afternoon when this judgment was delivered. And the actions of the previous ministers has been described as ludicrous. It is absolutely ludicrous to wake up one morning and just lose your citizenship. And we make the mistake of thinking it's only white people that have immigrated. It's not. It is people of all races in this country. And we also maybe always think of Europe or Australia. But what about Swaziland and Lesotho, Eswatini? It's people from all over, Botswana, Mozambique. So it's not about race. It's about the right to be a patriotic citizen of this country. And I'm glad that you use the word patriotism.
That's the word I was looking for, yeah.
No problem. I usually stumble over my words. So, Naledi, it's a very patriotic thing to want to be a citizen of this beautiful country of ours. And to then have that taken away illegally is wrong. What was very significant of this judgment today is that the Constitutional Court ruled that every single person that lost its citizenship due to this provision of Section 6 of the Citizenship Act will be deemed as if they have never lost their citizenship. So it's not, there will obviously be a process, but they will be deemed as if they have always been South African citizens. So Craig touched on it. Those people will now have the right to vote. they will have the right to enter this country whenever they like because they are now citizens. They won't have to apply for a visa to come and visit their grandchildren or their parents or whatever the case might be.
Yeah. Of course, now we need to talk about what happens moving forward. And Craig, before I let you go, perhaps you can help us with that, right? 2 million South Africans abroad. Now you've got, at some point you had what you needed to obtain was a retention for citizenship letter from the minister. You can talk to me about how difficult that was. And now Home Affairs needing to restore the citizenship of all of these people. That obviously not going to be an easy task.
This is a mammoth task. This is a task that needs a fairly effective task team to ensure that those people who now have fallen prey to this provision, who now have the correct line to their citizenship, can obviously now acquire it. So you could say it's half the battle getting the judgment. The other part is the reality of it and actually getting the citizenship you rightly deserve. There are provisions in the Citizenship Act that allow the minister to be quite pragmatic about this and issue certificates of South African citizenship. So I would believe that we need to watch the space with the DHA and especially the minister. This does fall on the minister, and it's quite onerous because he's the one who would make that decision on the citizenship and these people that fall into the net. But I think the new minister is fairly on top of his game. He's pragmatic. He has a grasp of dealing with a large number of applications with normal visas and permits, and he has the infrastructure and resources. So I don't think this is going to be a major problem. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel because the rights are there for the minister to issue these certificates to all those people who have lost out. But I think it's a fantastic judgment, and it keeps South Africa together. I just want to say quickly, before 1995, to that one caller, all those activists that left South Africa who may have been white, colored, or black, they were exempt from losing their South African citizenship when they left South Africa before apartheid. They were then given a free pass, an exemption from not losing their citizenship. So I don't think the Citizenship Act, I think the Citizenship Act is colorblind, and I think it does justice for all.
Yeah. Craig, we really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Craig, of course, is a immigration expert. That's Craig Smith. Well, we're going to stay in conversation with villagers for a few more moments. When we return, we get the DA's perspective on the Employment Equity Amendment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, we just to quickly wrap up our discussion on the Constitutional Court today, striking down a law that has been in place for many, many decades. And of course, has looked into what happens when a South African gets second nationality, and essentially the ConCourt's ruling that does no longer mean that you lose your citizenship to South Africa. Bongani is calling in Nelspruit. Bongani, good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Well, sir, thanks for calling. Talk to us.
Well, I just want to make a comment here and say, now, will it be true to say that the DA has won this case because there now is a Minister of Home Affairs from the DA? And because they've previously been rejected by the previous Ministers of Home Affairs because they were not from the DA. So now there's a DA Minister at Home Affairs, now they go and win this case. And also, I want to know from that DA, how will this dual citizenship work if when it comes to voting? Now, does that mean a person will now be allowed to vote in two countries? If you have a citizenship, an American citizenship, are you allowed to vote in America? And you also have a South African citizenship, are you also allowed to vote in South Africa? How will that work? Are you going to vote in both countries?
Okay. Interesting questions. I wonder if the Constitutional Court, though, and I doubt would be thinking about the politics of it. But Bongani, thank you so much for calling in. Let's take a look at a couple of WhatsApps that have also come in. You can keep yours coming in as well. 0721105584 is the number. Save it on your phone so that you can always get in touch with us and share your views. take a look at one or two of those. Bastan says, we are failed by both government and judiciary. I mean, we are a developing country with high unemployment. We can't afford to accommodate dual citizenship. It will devastate the already populated country that can't manage illegal immigrants. Okay, Bastan, thank you so much for that. Anonymous says, giving dual citizenship means stripping South Africa of its sovereignty. How do you run a state of double parkers? No more allegiance there. Anonymous, thank you so much for your views. Lots to respond to, Vili, but before I let you go, you can respond to what we've heard from some of our viewers. And then, of course, a touch on what you want to see for implementation.
Quickly to the caller from Nelspruit. This was a case that the DA has won on appeal before, and that was even before the GNU and before we had a Minister of Home Affairs. I firmly believe in the independence of the judiciary. And again, the Constitutional Court today reiterated the importance of the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is the cornerstone of what we are building here. So we firmly believe in the ability of the department under the leadership of Minister Leon Schreiber. He has shown us in the past how he eradicated the visa backlogs that were there. We've also got the DA Abroad. It's an organization assisting South Africans that are living in other countries, whether it's permanent or temporary. So we are quite sure that this will be implemented smoothly. It will be a mammoth task, but I believe that Minister Schreiber and the department is definitely up to this task.
Yeah. All right. So there's lots for us to talk about, and I think this is definitely going to be an ongoing discussion as we get to see how Home Affairs does the execution, and we'll look at some of the other knobs as part of it as that happens.